Here's Matthew, and he says, shout out to Kylian Mbappe. He had a rough start this year. He'll be one to watch in the USA 2026.
No doubt about it. Mbappe, of course, playing for a new team, has had a lot of injury problems. I think there are some attitude questions about him. But he's come home, in essence. He's playing really, really well. And he's scoring goals. He had a hat trick maybe Thursday, Friday of last week. So, yeah, international global soccer is really, really cool. And now it's been augmented by some of the strange things that are happening in the English Premier League. Manchester United is like 8-12-6. Man U has got 12 losses already. That's staggering. Manchester City, which owned it last year, just decimated by injuries. Not just Erling Haaland, but Vogel and a whole bunch of other guys. It's not the same team right now. Arsenal's is really good. Liverpool's got one loss this season, and they look like they're running away with it. So some of the stuff that's gone on in soccer globally, Cristiano Ronaldo in Saudi Arabia, and there's a lot of unhappiness over there. So it's really kind of unique how the global game now is getting a lot more attention here in the States, in addition to what we're doing with Team USA.
Yeah, and with the MLS in San Diego. So soccer is coming up. I mean, have you seen the rumors about De Bruyne coming here to San Diego,
Yes.
leaving Man City? I mean, do you think that's a real rumor?
From a dollar standpoint, why would he do that, though? I mean, because the Manchester City fullback is just elite. He's going to come here. There's a salary cap here. It's a much different, much lower amount of money, unless he's coming at the twilight of his career. But yeah, De Bruyne's name has been mentioned nonstop for months upon months upon months. We'll see if they can fit him in and how they do that. That to me is a bit of a surprise.
Yeah. Okay. Let's keep moving here. Matthew has another question. Again, spend money, get to the front of the list. Ballmer has done everything right. Clips are cursed.
Yeah, they are. We don't know the extent of this latest foot problem now with Kawhi Leonard. We don't know the extent really on Norman Powell and this knee issue. I think they're a little bit wafer thin in terms of quality depth once you get beyond them. Harden's had a phenomenal statistical season. I would have never thought somebody his age would be able to execute and just carry the workload that he has carried. But yeah, they need to be able to get to free agency and then find a way to creatively add some more people, because they just don't have enough people in the Western Conference.
Yeah. I mean, Ballmer went out and got Kawhi, and I remember how we are so excited in LA.
Oh, the Kawhi and PG, and then injuries. And prior to that, he'd done it with Chris Paul and Blake Griffin, and they got right to the edge, and injuries wiped them out there.
Yeah, so it's like, Ballmer, you can't blame him for trying, so it's definitely the Clippers curse. I remember Sports Illustrated did an article in the late 80s about the Clipper curse, and they traced it all the way back to when they were the Buffalo Braves, yes. I think, then became the San Diego Clippers and then the LA Clippers. And it was all kinds of things, from people blowing out knees. I mean, who was the kid? Not Danny Ferry, but he played for Kansas in the late 80s. Do you remember him? And he blew out his knee, never really got much of a career going.
Yeah, they've had a lot of problems. When the Buffalo Braves got here, that was a pretty good basketball team.
I think Bob McAdoo might have been.
Yeah, McAdoo was here. They had two great guards. Randy Smith was one of them. And then Tom Chambers came, as a draft pick.
Yeah.
I mean, they had a collection of a big kid by the name of Michael Kennedy. They were really good, but then injuries just kind of ravaged them, and then ownership destroyed the franchise. Your guy, Don Sterling.
That guy, yeah, what a disgrace.
Okay. Hey, thanks for being with us. Next one.
Okay, let's see. Again, a lot of San Diego FC talk. Let's go here to Callan. Afternoon, gents. I was a part of about 1,000 SDFC supporters who made the trek to Carson to watch SDFC's debut match. Yes, it's match 1 of 34, but what a display from Dreyer and SDFC. San Diego is I guess superior to Carson.
Well, I know that, but my biggest concern 2 weeks ago, when we had our first group of people who came to participate, they asked the question, "What do you think about the makeup of the roster?" My concern is, do you have goal scoring to work with Lozano? Because otherwise, they're just going to check him right out of the game. Well, Dreyer came from Denmark. He's a Danish player. And holy cow, is he active, and is he fast, and has he got a booming shot? So suddenly everybody will see on video this guy running and getting open. And now suddenly you got to defend him too, in addition to what Chucky brings to the table. And I like their back end. They've built their back end, not just with Dos Santos, the goalkeeper, but they've got 3 or 4 veteran guys played in MLS who've got track records of being very stable. And then the defenseman or the fullback that came from Ireland, Paddy McNair. So collectively, it's a really back end built team. But boy, if Dreyer is the real deal, how are you going to defend Dreyer's ability and Lozano's skill? That's good to have two firepower guys there, and then they got some other young guys that they'll develop. So out of the gate, only counts as 1 win, but you beat the former champ. Holy cow, that's impressive.
It was great. I mean, it was a great event, as a sports fan, learning your new local team and getting to know the players and the personalities so you can kind of become a fan. So yeah, this is just all a thrill. And as far as the game goes, yeah, it was exciting. It was interesting though, in the first half, sometimes, the pace was very slow at times. I thought slower than I'm usually used to seeing, like, especially in World Cup soccer.
Mhm.
Now, clearly the second half, I mean, it accelerated, especially with the Galaxy when they're making those big pushes.
Yeah, Galaxy made pushes, and then obviously SDFC responded, and they came back. I mean, there's some big saves made in the San Diego end of the pitch, and I was very impressed with FC. I mean, they had 9 shots on goal. I mean, they were peppering stuff at that keeper all the time. He made some nice saves too, and good game. 1 win. Let's see what they do against St. Louis.
That first one was a gift, the first
Yes.
goal, but we'll take it. Okay, let's keep going. And again, more comments here about SDFC. Fans Forum, this is from Ralph. Lee and John, hello. Where do San Diego State and San Diego FC stand on the use of Snapdragon financially?
Good question. There's a different group that actually runs Snapdragon. That's not run by the athletic department at San Diego State. So I think, financially, I think SDSU gets a cut of whatever they get from men's soccer, women's soccer, all these other events that they're going to have there. But I'll tell you what, if SDFC, if they average 30,000 a game at those prices, that's just going to be magic for them financially. So San Diego State will benefit. What San Diego State needs to do is get their football program up and running to the point they're drawing 32,000 fans per game too.
Yeah, and that's a great facility. I mean,
Yeah.
I went to one of the San Diego State games last year, and I really enjoyed myself. I thought the amenities were terrific, and they had to fix the turf, which they're working on. But this, I think, could be a real world-class venue for the city.
Isn't it interesting? Suddenly Snapdragon Stadium becomes soccer centric, not Aztec centric. It's kind of
Just
weird.
don't call it Soccer City, right?
Yeah.
Okay, talking San Diego State football, let's jump ahead here to Aztec Mike. And he goes, hey, Saw, I was at the San Diego State season ticket holder appreciation day Saturday at Snapdragon, and AD Wicker dropped some bombs. I told John I was waiting to tell both of you today. Wicker mentioned the media deal, NIL, etc., but the biggest shock to the fans there was how Pac-12 Enterprises is in negotiations and finalizing a deal about renting the studios in San Ramon to Cal, Stanford, MLB, NFL, and more for additional revenue for the Pac-12. As far as I know, there is no college conference doing this kind of business.
Well, of course, the Pac-12 network faltered. They had spent a lot of money to build really quality facilities. They had to get out from underneath that up in San Francisco. They have new production facilities that they're renting out to the different universities that want to do creative content. And that's what John David was talking all about. But they're still between a rock and a hard place in terms of their media contract. Just because the Pac-12 at this point, I think, has got a limited amount of interest they can draw. They're talking about having 3 networks. 2 of them will be football related. 1 of them will be a basketball network. But they're not talking about a volume of money. And I talked about this, Mike, a week ago, 2 weeks ago. The Big Ten just cut checks for I think it was $52 million for each school from the TV contracts. The week prior, SEC had cut checks for $61 million, I believe it was, for every SEC member as part of the media contract. I've been told by sources who know that the media contract for whatever the Pac-12 comes up with might be only worth $10 million per school. That's a massive difference. $10 million for San Diego State, $62 million for somebody in the SEC, or what the Big Ten distributes, what the Big 12, the ACC gets. They're really operating at a massive disadvantage. So creatively doing things with that production facility, that's helped. But that's nickel and dimes compared to where they really need to be, and they're not going to be there, at least not in the first TV contract that I know of.
Yeah, they do have to come up with creative revenue opportunities here. And hopefully, that's the nature of capitalism, right? We kind of come up with these new things. So let's see what happens with.
On we go.
On we go. Okay, let's move on down the list here. And we're gonna go up here to John. And John says, "Hey, I know it's a long way from SoCal, but I got to Alex Ovechkin's score a hattie yesterday. 13 goals away from passing Gretzky. Hope you guys give it a mention."
Yeah, Ovechkin had the hat trick, so he's 13 back of Wayne Gretzky. He is going to catch him, I bet, before this season is ended. Great hockey player. I don't know if John would agree with me, but the next time we talk about four nations, I want Team Europe. I want all the Russians and the Germans and who might ever have attachments to Italy and Austria and Switzerland. I mean, there are some players of that nature in the NHL. Let's have a Team Europe and make sure all those guys are part of what we just experienced with Team USA, Team Canada, and then obviously Team Nordic, as I'm calling it, Norway, Sweden, and Scandinavia and Finland.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of good vibes going around this with that Four Nations tournament. And these players were playing for the nation on their jersey. So there's a lot of pride on the line. They don't want to embarrass themselves with their folks back home. So, yeah, they've got the winning formula.
It was great hockey. Now, the price to be paid, there are so many guys who came out of that tournament hurt that are not with their teams right now as this back half of the NHL schedule has started. Tkachuk is not with Florida. The other Tkachuk is not in Ottawa right now. Obviously, Shea Theodore at Las Vegas is gone indefinitely with a shoulder injury. So there's some damage been done to some of these teams by virtue of their players getting hurt in the Four Nations.
Yeah, but you can get hurt in any other game.
Well, I agree.
So I don't think you can really blame them.
Okay, we move on.
Okay, we move on. Let's go here to Carlos, talk a little Lakers. Lee, how about that Mile High City beatdown? Lakers over the Nuggets. They limited Jokic to 7 shots in the game with that nasty defense. Also, last I checked, the Warriors won chips without a center.
Warriors are playing much better right now. Even with the arrival of crybaby Jimmy Butler, they're playing really, really well. We'll see if that continues. And the postseason is such a different thing. And I have huge reservations that the Lakers in postseason can go deep if you don't have legitimacy in the paint on defense. I think it's a big issue. And how many minutes can you play when you have to play every other night in postseason? The wear and tear factor on LeBron and Luka is going to be really significant. I just know the Lakers have very much of a consistent bench, and they, to me, I surely don't believe they have the right people in the paint.
Yeah, again, the Lakers are at like this inflection point where they can go left or they can go right, and I'm not sure what's going to happen. But I think Carlos makes a good point. The Warriors during that run, with Splash Brothers, Draymond Green, you had Durant there for a little bit, but they didn't have like a big guy in the middle. I remember Lee was one of the big centers they had for a stretch, but they didn't have like an all-star center.
But they had a bunch of guys who shot the hell out of the ball.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, the Splash Brothers did a lot of threes.
Yeah, absolutely.
On we go.
On we go. And again, more talk about that. San Diego FC. He goes, SDFC will be the first team to bring a professional championship in sports to San Diego.
Jorge, it's a little early to do that. I mean, we're one game into a 34-game MLS schedule. Great win. Enjoy it. Can't wait for the first home game. I think it's going to be wild in the community, but it's a 34-game schedule here. Let's not order any trophy parade yet.
Well, I mean, if we're going to include soccer in the list, and the San Diego Sockers have won a few national championships back in the day, but I just love the enthusiasm for all of this. I mean, people are really excited about this expansion team.
See where it goes. Game 2, St. Louis. Next one.
Okay, let's go down the list here. We'll go to Chris. He goes, Biscuit Dangler here on the O Canada line. As a lifelong Kings fan, I am currently buying stock in the Anaheim Ducks. Their young offensive line is scary, and with those stud blue liners coming up shortly, I fear they may soon be better. SoCal team, tell me I'm bleeping brilliant.
Not right now. Chris, they're 25-25-6. They're good. They're making progress. They've had this hot spell here. They won 7 of 8 games. and they'd never ever done that before. The kids are playing well. Dostal is playing really well in goal. I still think they're short on veteran grit. Trade deadline is coming up. I think it's March 6th. John Gibson may be moved. Ryan Strome may be moved, and maybe they get a different type of player to play up front. I don't think they need any more draft picks. I think they need a certain style of contributor to complement all the kids they have. Cutter Gauthier's had a nice rookie season. I think he's got 12 goals now. He scored 2 last night in Detroit. Leo Carlson has been in and out of the lineup. We see flashes where he can score, but the young second-year guy from Sweden, he's not been dominant yet, but maybe he'll grow into that role. Troy Terry's an established guy. So I think they've got a lot of foundation there, but they just need to continue to build on it because they have suffered so bad. The level of hockey has been so bad at Anaheim for such a chunk of time, and now it looks like they're right on the brink of taking the next step. But the next step is getting to the playoffs. Please don't forecast. I don't believe any of the weather forecast on TV. Don't forecast Ducks Stanley Cup. Not yet, please. Just get to the playoffs.
Well, they take more than half the teams into the playoffs in the NHL.
Yeah,
right?
but they're not in that upper half.
No, okay. All right.
But they're getting there.
So it's progress. And by the way, I like Chris's shout out to the Canadian accent. It's always funny when I ever see a coach talking about offense, and you see that trickle into like the Minnesota accent as well.
Chris, pretty good contribution, eh?
There you go.
Thanks for being with us.
It's not like the McKenzie brothers. Okay, let's go here. Talk more Kings talk. Alan Valentine says, big game tonight with the Golden Knights versus the LA Kings. Kings need a high-handed shooter. Who can they get?
Thing is, can they take out any more payroll? I mean, their payroll is so high. They got so many guys making so much money. Kevin Fiala has had a good middle stretch of the season. I think he's up to 22 goals. You got Kempe. Kopitar. They've got some firepower. Got to keep Drew Doughty healthy on the blue line. I don't know what to make of goaltending, but Darcy Kemper is their guy. Journeyman as he might be, he is going to be their guy. I think they can do damage in the playoffs. We got to see what happens at the trade deadline. There's reports everywhere that Edmonton is going to make another deal. I don't know how that's possible with their salary cap situation. It looks like Vancouver is about to go into sell mode, so there'll be some changes there. But at the end of the day, last I checked, there's nobody in the class of Winnipeg. What the Winnipeg Jets have built quietly and efficiently is just amazing. I mean, that's a really dangerous hockey team who can score a lot of goals with a great goaltender in Hellebuck. So playoffs, I love the NHL playoffs. But the Kings are there. Kings got to find a way to get beyond Edmonton in the first round. They've lost them 3 straight years in the opening round, but the Kings look dynamic enough to be able to do that. And Edmonton, all of a sudden, Edmonton's got goaltending problems again. And what I heard today is Edmonton's talking to the Ducks about John Gibson. But I don't know how Edmonton can take on a $6 million a year contract because that's what Gibson carries with him, unless the Ducks are going to pay a piece of it. But all of a sudden, Edmonton's a little skitterish about Stuart Skinner's not had the consistency this year that he had last year.
Love the hockey talk, man. I mean, I learn a lot about this because, I'm not a big hockey guy. I wasn't really raised with the NHL in the Bay Area when I was a kid.
You want me to agree that you were a dumbass when you started this podcast? Yes,
I followed the Giants, the Niners, the Warriors, but they had the Seals, I think, up in San Francisco.
Yeah, Charlie Finley owned the team.
Yeah.
It was a national disgrace.
Yeah, and I remember hearing a little bit about them when I was growing up. Well, hey,
okay. Thank you on the hockey hotline. We're the baseball fans. We're the NFL fans. You need to join me here.
Here are the baseball fans right here. We're going to start with Flegel. He goes, happy to have Dodger baseball back. Vicious line drives at pitchers, vicious pitches at batters. Definitely room for improvement in the Cactus League.
Well, Yar's concerned about line drives back to the box, and we've seen a lot of that recently. I mean, I saw that thing. I couldn't believe what happened to Bobby Miller. And thank goodness he did not suffer a fractured skull. If that thing it hit him right here, right in the bone. If it had been an inch down, it would have hit him here. That would have been catastrophic to his eye. So we'll just have to see. He's got some headaches. He was cleared out of protocol last night. He threw today. We'll see how he feels tonight. How does his body react to the kind of exertion that's going on? But Dodgers are really good. Dodgers are really deep. Dodgers so far so good in terms of the stuff when their guys are doing bullpens and how their body's responding. So we got 5 weeks before the season starts.
It does feel good to turn on the television
Oh,
and see a day baseball game, sunny skies, green grass. And for us, we're in San Diego. Imagine if you were in Chicago or Boston or somewhere else where you're freezing your butt off. So it's got that good vibe going, you know?
John knows me really well. John knows I have zero patience for anything, especially traffic jams.
Mhm.
But I was in a damn traffic jam on, was it Thursday or Friday? Dodgers' first game against the Cubs. I guess it was Thursday. Punched it up on the radio, and there was Dodger baseball on the radio without Vin Scully, but Dodger baseball on the radio. So, it's springtime.
Yeah, it feels good, you know? So, and yeah, all good with the Dodgers. And by the way, the Padres had a pitcher got hit in the head
Yes,
too.
the line drive, and he got hurt. I'm trying to remember.
He's like a minor leaguer, I think.
Yeah, and I'm trying to remember what the injury was. I just wrote it down, but he is out. He's got a concussion. Oh, he's got fractures, facial fractures.
Oh my. Okay.
Yeah, so he's going to miss probably the rest of spring.
Oh, that's a tough one.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay, Fleegy, thank you for being with us.
All right, let's go from Flegel to PE for life. Lee, can you give us one must that the Padres need to do in order to come in first in the West?
Wow. Well, there's something catastrophic would have to happen to a number of people at Dodger Stadium, I think, for that to happen. I hate to say that this is the Dodger Invitational pennant race, but for the Padres, no injuries to any of their top four starting rotation. If that group stays intact now with the arrival of the Red Sox pitcher, that's a really good top four. Very deep in the bullpen. But if anything happens to Darvish or anything happens to any of these other of the top four starters, they're going to be hurt because I just don't think any of the guys competing for the fifth spot have proven that they're a full season major league trustworthy starting pitcher. So keeping the top four healthy, good. Which of the groups that were invited to play in left field can have a good season? If somebody can do what Profar did, if they find somebody that can hit 265 with a little bit of pop in left field, that solves that problem. I do think they'll have a catcher. He might be a glove-only guy. I happen to like Diaz from Colorado because he made the All-Star team, and I think he's a grinder. He has hit in the past. Campusano's got all these gifts, but there's been no consistency. He's one of the worst-rated defensive catchers in all of baseball. They're not going to give up on him. You know, does a light bulb go on for him as to what he has to do mechanically? Maybe it does. And Maldonado's got a great glove, but he's got zero bat at all. So I think they'll be okay behind home plate because the first thing, according to Bud Black, the old manager, was got to have a catcher, otherwise the ball goes to the backstop. So, you know, give me a good glove, and then we'll worry about the other things. So, health on the mound from the top four. Somebody in left field hit. Doesn't have to be Profar's 280 or 300, but hit consistently, and then which of the guys is going to bring the right glove to the ballpark. That's how I view a successful season.
Well, I think all three of those are on target. I might add, you need to have a good DH, and that's why I was inspired by Gavin Sheets. But this is another one that I've heard only a few people mention, but it's a good point. We need to see Fernando Tatis Jr., flourish.
43 home run Fernando Tatis Jr., not the 21 home run guy who gets hurt.
Yeah, exactly. We need to see a full season 5-star player, put the team on your back. Let's see it. Because I think he's 26 or so. So he's right in that primetime window.
Well, he has the ability to carry them a chunk, just like Machado has the ability to carry them a chunk.
Yes.
And then then obviously if Jackson Merrill does not have anything related to a sophomore slump, that's a really good player. Cronenworth in spurts has proven to be solid. Need a bounce back from Xander Bogaerts, but I don't know that's possible. His statistics since the tail end at Fenway Park have gone down, down, down every year. A lot of miles on that body.
A lot of miles on that body. But you know what's another thing they got to do? They got to hit the ball when the Dodgers are pitching. They can't go 24 innings in a row and not score. So there's a lot going on with this. But again, I just like this energy, people talking baseball, talking about this or that, who's going to get the left field job. It's a lot of fun.
We talk baseball like nobody else. So you might be a Padre, Dodger, Angel fan, or a Yankee fan, or a Red Sox fan, or some other team. Join us on a podcast. Join us in the Fans Forum chat box. Next one, John.
Okay, let's go here to Hector. We'll talk a little ESPN and television. ESPN's been dying the way of sports talk radio thanks to corporate greed, short-sightedness for years. MLB will come out stronger for this. Can ESPN say the same?
Well, it's interesting because Rob Manfred, in his statement that ESPN has exited the final 3 years of the contract and won't pay $550 million, and we won't give them a discount from what they signed the contract for. He also indicated because of cord cutting, is that the correct terminology?
Yes.
ESPN had 93 million viewers about 5 years ago. It's down to 63 million. But that's technology has changed everything, and you have to be able to cope with that. But I don't know how Manfred, and we're going to talk about this in coming weeks. To be honest with you, Hector, I don't know how Manfred copes with the erosion of TV dollars. Because what 11, I think it was 11 baseball teams lost their regional sports network TV contracts and are now operating at a reduced amount of money, including the Padres. And now that 550 million that is shared with everybody from ESPN, that goes away. So how's Manfred going to replace all this? That's the big issue. Where's he going to find network partners to replace it? It becomes a really, really big challenge.
It's hard. Yeah. And there's a lot of money on the table here, a lot of money that's been committed in these long-term contracts. So they've got to find a solution. But this is a point in time where things are in flux.
Yep.
Now, remember when ESPN first came on the online, they were 1980, I think, with Chris Berman, and they didn't cover any of the big sports. And slowly they became, the center of all sports on television. And now it's beginning to fragment away from them. I think that's just the nature of streaming and everything else.
Yeah, exactly. And it's further complicated by the fact that the Yankees have their big sports network, and the Mets have their big sports network, and the Dodgers have theirs, and the Red Sox have NESN, their big regional network. And these guys are making volumes of money. And they are not, one of Rob Manfred's proposals is, we're going to put more money, take some of your TV money and now go into a central fund. Well, I'll guarantee you the Yankees don't want to give up a large chunk of their TV money for their share, where the Pirates are putting nickels and dimes in because their TV money is this and the Yankees TV money is that. So it's a big issue how you're going to get to a central fund. It's different than the NFL. The NFL has national TV contracts. Nobody has local TV contracts in the NFL. There's no station doing games like the Padres have their own TV network. No. The national TV picture in the NFL, everybody gets the same cut of the pie because all the money goes in to the pot. Yankees and Red Sox, Dodgers, Mets, they're not going to want to give a large share of their TV revenue into a central fund when Milwaukee and Detroit and Pittsburgh and Miami and Tampa are putting 25 cents in. Big issue.
So you're going to want to break off like the Big Ten and the SEC, right? And have their own little 5-team league. They're going to have to come up with creative ideas. But I was just thinking remember when they built Petco and John Moores was the owner, but they found additional revenue streams there by building a lot of the high rises, the office buildings, the condominiums. But I guess that was more of an asset of ownership more so than a revenue source for the baseball team.
Well, it was the creative genius of Moores and Lucchino to buy all those empty lots in the East Village at cheap prices. And then as the stadium was built and became a destination point, they went back and they found all the hotels. They wanted to build hotels around that stadium. And then there was high-rise businesses that had been built there. But that's all on their land, which means that's lifetime revenue coming in.
Right. But so my question is does that revenue go into the pockets of the investors and owners, or does it actually become a revenue source for the baseball team?
Probably a combination of both.
Yeah. So the point being, though, is I think these markets have got to be dynamic and entrepreneurial and come up with different ways, because you just can't depend on a Bally Sports regional contract.
Well, the regional contracts have dried up and died.
Exactly.
Manfred has an enormous problem. And the other, in addition to the fact that big markets don't want to give up more TV revenue to share, he's got the other guy sitting across the table, Tony Clark, who's walking around with his hand out, that we're not going to have a salary cap, et cetera. I mean, he's got to negotiate with those guys in addition to what they're trying to deal with here. So we haven't heard the end of the story. We're going to talk a lot more about it. Let's do a couple more here.
Okay, this is kind of an extension to this topic. This is from Angel. Rare that I agreed with a moron, but Manfred not wrong. Outside of Dodgers, Yankees, and Red Sox, ESPN hardly talks about Major League Baseball.
Well, yeah, I don't understand ESPN, as I did in my commentary, You signed to pay $550 million. You had 90 games per year, plus the All-Star game, home run derby, and other assorted unique things. And you went from 90 games down to 30. Why would you do that? You're denigrating the product you paid all the money for. And then, now you're into the college playoffs, and ESPN runs and operates and finances a lot of bowl games. And the bowls are no longer what they used to be because of the college football playoffs. So ESPN's funded all this money into the bowls, and their viewership numbers have gone down. And they're dumping a ton of money into the NBA, and their own people in the NBA, the players, etc., dumping all over the sport. The product, the quality of play is terrible, and you got these players and their attitudes. So you're directing all that money into the NBA, and nobody's watching. Their TV ratings have dropped too. So I just don't understand ESPN's methodology. When you had baseball, whose revenue streams are up, all-time high in attendance, all-time high in TV ratings, and you're cutting back on your coverage of baseball to dump it other places that might not generate what used to be there before. That's my perspective of it.
Well, it's weird because if you turn on ESPN or FS1 during the middle of the day, it's like this. It's like a podcast with like 3 or 4 guys around a table. And that one group has the 8 o'clock and the next group has a 9 o'clock block, et cetera. It's like sports talk radio. So everything's changed. This reminds me also of like when MTV stopped playing music on MTV and made it reality TV. It's like the entertainment part of ESPN is kind of playing a role here.
Taking over control of it. I don't know what you do with your spare time. I don't know that I could sit there all day and listen to guys yell at each other all day. I just can't do that.
Well, sometimes I just have it on in the background, if I'm doing something around the house. But it's there's a lot of new faces, a lot of new talk shows, and very little of it is about baseball. It's usually NBA and NFL.
That's sad. And so they've denigrated the product they paid a lot of money for.
Yeah.
How stupid is that? Okay, we move on. Couple more before we get to social media.
Okay, let's go here to and says, question, is it concerning if the Dodgers don't win spring training games? It's looked flat so far, and they're getting blown out.
Well, it's exhibition games. Does it count in the standings? No. Exhibition games are get your guys live action fire, hopefully get out of there without any significant injuries. And the third piece of the equation, my young guys. Have they made a jump? How do they do competing against the next level? So exhibition games are special, but they have meaning for only a certain amount. It's not about Freddie Freeman. Now, if it's about guys coming off injuries, and the Dodgers sure have a checklist of a lot of those guys coming off surgery. So, but the outcoming games, no, not a big deal. Enjoy the game. If you go to the Cactus League and you go see the Padres in Peoria, just enjoy being out there in the sunshine and enjoying the game, or Camelback Ranch, etc. Doesn't mean anything till we get to opening day, but they need in this what's left of the next 5 weeks, they need to get answers on a whole bunch of guys. And so spring training has that value. Wins and losses, nah.
Yeah, exactly. Again, I remember as a kid reading the green sheet of the San Francisco Chronicle, and they would do spring training standings. And this is in the 1970s when the San Francisco Giants were horrible. And most years they had a really good spring training record. And I remember my cousins and my uncle would say, oh, it doesn't mean anything. It's just spring training. I'm like, but they're in first place. And of course, everything went to hell in a handbasket. So yeah, I don't think Om has much to worry about. But also the other thing I remember as a kid with spring training is how you'd see the local news would cover a game, like just in the highlights of the local news, and they would be wearing not their whites or their gray jerseys. They would be wearing a solid color jersey. For the Giants, it might be all black or all orange. And I remember thinking, wow, that's different. And now we see these as alternative jerseys everywhere.
Yeah, well, that's Reebok and everybody else who's got these contracts to create new inventory. Like I saw the Phillies yesterday on TV. And the Phillies are wearing their special spring training hats. And what's on the hat? The Liberty Bell. It's not the P. It's not, that's not the logo. It's a Liberty Bell. That's kind of cool. Padres ought to wear spring training hats with just the swinging friar. We don't need SD.
Mm-hmm.
The Pirates got that great old historic Buccaneer logo. Put that on your helmet or put that on a spring training jersey. because it's all merchandising. It's selling. It's marketing.
Well, I think that part of it is great. I have a friend of mine who's a traditionalist, and he hates it all. Why do they have these alternative hats, and I don't like this. But I think it's terrific when they do that. And what was it? The Padres, they've had some spring training gear in the past, but it used to always be the St. Patrick's Day game was the one they first changed. And then now suddenly it's different all the time. It's good though.
Yeah. The Mets, I saw an interview with Pete Alonso, who just re-signed, and their colors are blue and orange. And they've got their great historical Mets script they've had ever since day one, back to 1962, when they lost 120 games. But they got something different this year. So he's wearing a blue and orange cap, not with the NY, but with a cartoon character, Mr. Met. Kind of cool looking.
That is good.
Yeah, why not?
Yeah, and the Phillies are smart too, because if you just have the Liberty Bell, I mean, that can expand to be appealing to people outside of sports.
Yep.
So it's all good stuff. It is.
Okay. Let's do one more here, and then we're gonna go to social media.
Okay. Let's go here for Gary. And he says, hey, are the Padres going to charge $20 a month for games on TV?
Yeah, actually, you know what the Padres are doing right now? On Padres.tv, they're offering 20 games in the Cactus League free. So if you want to sample it, I guess you just go to Padres.tv, and I guess you can sign up and you get the exhibition games for free. Now, there is a package where you subscribe for, I think it's $19.99 a month. It might be, I don't know what it is for the whole year, but yeah, that you can get it through Padres TV. I happen to get it through cable, through DirecTV. But there's different ways, different costs, etc. But the Padres situation is pretty good compared to other markets where they've really struggled to come up with the right TV package and the right pricing.
Yeah, for me, it's bundled into my DirecTV stream package.
Yep.
So, for you, it's in your cable, but a lot of people are cutting the cord, and that's a serious thing as far as how these companies are managing it. But, this kind of goes back to that point that Aztec Mike was making with me earlier about Apple TV and pay-per-view for MLS. Do you think that it's a disservice to the community by not putting more games on free TV? And I put that in quotes because we still pay for cable.
You got to find somebody. It's not really, you're not giving the games to a TV station for free. The Padres are talking about a Saturday package with one of the local TV stations that will be on free TV. I don't know whether it's Fox 5 or the one I do stuff at KUSI. It might be one of them, that there will be a Saturday free package on local TV. That's what I hear. But you got to, if you're going to try to have your games on normal television, that means you need somebody who's going to put a bid in and pay you financially and then take on the cost to televise it. That's not cheap in a day and age where the advertising marketing community has really become squashed.
Yeah. I mean, that whole thing is changing as well, because people aren't, doing major sponsorships. They're doing paid search and pay-per-click advertising. So yeah, it's a different world.
We'll see where it goes, but check Padres.tv because I was told there are going to be 20 free Padre games on Padre.tv during spring training, and then you can investigate what the regular season package might be like. Okay, John, let's go to social media here real quick.
Okay, let's talk some Angels baseball. This is with Calb. It says, hey, new season, same old Angels. Take it from a long-suffering Anaheim resident. We have seen this movie before. The biggest Moreno failure has to be having Ohtani and Trout on the roster at the same time with nothing to show for it. And as always, the Halos managed to snatch defeat from the jaws of victory. Yep, same old Angels.
Well, it's been a traumatic time. Artie Moreno's made a lot of mistakes, but he finally, he ended his 3-year embargo on talking to the media. And he spoke to the media last week. I did a big thing on KUSI about that on Saturday Sports. He's taken blame. So the next thing is, don't be impulsive. Try not to make mistakes on free agents. He made terrible mistakes on Josh Hamilton, Vernon Wells, Justin Upton. And then he thought he had a good acquisition in Anthony Rendon, who had never been hurt in Washington, came here and has never been healthy. So he's just been a victim of some of his own bad decisions, been a victim of some bad luck. They've got to rebuild the farm system. That takes a hell of a lot of time. They got some young guys. They forced them all to Angel Stadium last year, and they played okay, but they still lost 99 games. it's a long road back. When you get down in the gutter as they've been down, it takes a long time to come back from. So, can they turn the corner? It might take 2 years. Need some good luck, need some good acquisitions, need somebody from these high draft picks in the farm system to step forward, and we'll just have to see where it goes. It's a great market. It's a market unto itself, and they've not served the market very well because he's made some mistakes as owner. Some that he brought on himself, others he just victimized himself.
Well, I was reading in your best 15. What's the kid's name? Luis Regnifo?
Yes.
Yeah, and he was an infielder, but they're trying him out in center now.
Oh, they're looking at him to see. That's because they've got the young draft pick, Caleb Moore, that might be the second baseman, and Rengifo might become the center field. He had 300 last season, beat him in arbitration too.
Okay.
So get the bat in the lineup. But that's dependent on what Caleb Moore does. Could Moore hit major league pitching at such a young, tender age?
All right.
Next one.
Moving on. Okay, let's talk Lakers. And this is from Ball. Reacting to the questions if the Lakers were legit. He says, Lee, they're in the 5th playoff position and they are red hot, like 11-3 out of the last 14. By the way, this post was from about a week ago. They do have issues at center, but they are likely a top 6 seed in the West. They are absolutely not fighting for a playoff spot.
It's early. We got a lot of games to be played. They have a black hole in the paint. That's a big issue. They're playing real people, although they did beat a real team. I mean, all honesty, Paul, I can't believe they went into Denver and beat those guys the way they did. Denver, a 9-game winning streak coming in, and Jokovic just disappeared. 2 baskets in 35 minutes. How is that humanly possible? So only counts as 1 win. We'll see. I don't think they're going to finish in the top 4. I'd be surprised because this schedule is tougher and tougher now. The back end, the last 30 games, are playing 18 really good teams, even though they beat one of them in Denver. Let's just see if they can hold up. They're probably a sixth place, maybe a 7th place team, if they don't have any injuries. And what's to say that Doncic is not going to get hurt again? Let's say LeBron's not going to have a setback. Then now you're even less of a team then if that happens.
Can you imagine if the Oklahoma City Thunder win the whole thing?
Well, I projected Oklahoma City Thunder would win the whole thing way back in November when we did our preview. I got Oklahoma City and I had Houston as 2 of the elite young teams in the league that I thought were going to take this thing.
Yeah. I mean, imagine that. I mean, Oklahoma City, I mean, that's their only big time, professional sport that they have there.
They've rebuilt it a second time and stockpiled a ton of draft picks, went through an awful lot of pain. That's obviously what's going on out west. Boston is still Boston. Philadelphia has been degraded by all the injuries. Knickerbockers have just kind of hit a wall. So, I mean, right now we're talking about Boston and Cleveland really being exceptional. I think Cleveland's 45-10.
Donovan Mitchell is a special guy.
Yeah, but he's surrounded by really good players. So, playoffs will be good for the upper echelon teams. And I just don't view, I'm sorry, Ball, I just don't view the Lakers upper echelon in the same conversation with Oak City, Houston, Cleveland, or Boston. Just don't see it.
No, we're going to find out. It's coming soon. Okay, let's go to Padres talk. This is with Lucas. Hey, hearing Jason Hayward won't be going for the left field spot was shocking to me, but it makes me like the signing even more, as we didn't bring him along to platoon in left field, but more as a mentor to our young ascending outfielders.
Got to prove he can hit. Got to prove he hasn't lost his bat speed. He's more center field, right field than he is anything. Now he may get some exhibition games in left field, but I think he's going to give Jackson Merrill time off, Tatis time off in center and right. Good player. Has had a really nice career. God, he's a 16-year veteran. Very good, very strong personality, very, very impactful clubhouse presence. And that's an intangible, doesn't show up in a batting average, et cetera. So we'll just see if he hits 250, he's going to be part of that rotation in the outfield somewhere. If he hits 211, then they have to make a decision whether they keep him or not. Because he hit 211 with the Dodgers, but he went to Houston and he hit like in his 260s in Houston right at the tail end of the season, but not good enough to stay there.
I watched a few interviews of him, and he's an impressive man.
Yeah.
He carries himself really well, so I can see him being a mentor.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, he's a great defensive player, and it just seemed that his hitting never was there in the early part of his career, and then it sort of sputtered in the middle to latter part.
So much was expected. He came up with Atlanta. He was supposed to be the next superstar. They went from Dale Murphy to, most people thought, Jason Hayward. He had good seasons, hit with some power. He got dinged up a little bit too. Not quite the superstar they thought, but I think rock solid as an everyday player. He played a ton of games, and last couple years, but he's not a kid anymore. He's 34, 35, now maybe 36. So we'll just see if he can hit, he'll be here in some unique, different role, and that'd be great. That's all. And he's on a minimum contract.
Yeah, for the Padres, it's great. And by the way, why isn't Dale Murphy in the Hall of Fame? I mean, that guy was awesome in the early 80s.
I concur with you. That's another argument for another time. Hey, listen.